The restaurant was the kind people picked when they wanted to look important. Everything inside was polished, expensive, and slightly intimidating. The lighting was dim, but sharp enough to expose mistakes. The tables were spaced just enough to allow privacy, but close enough for quiet judgment. This was not a place for awkward pauses or nervous laughter. It was designed for confidence. When she walked in, heels clicking softly against the marble floor, she immediately felt the pressure of the room. People here knew where they belonged. Or at least they acted like they did. She checked her phone again, confirming the time. He was late. Very late. Still, she told herself to stay calm. First impressions mattered in places like this, and tonight she needed this to go well more than she wanted to admit. She had arrived 10 minutes early, not because she was eager, but because she didn't want to appear careless. Hope had a way of making people over-prepare. She smoothed her dress, adjusted her posture, and chose a seat that felt safe, close to the wall with a clear view of the entrance. Every few seconds, her eyes drifted toward the door. Each time it opened, her heart lifted slightly, then dropped. She reminded herself that delays happened. Traffic, parking, life. Still, a quiet unease began to grow. This wasn't her first blind date, but something about this one felt heavier. Maybe it was the setting. Maybe it was the way everyone else seemed paired, settled, confident. She sat alone, pretending not to notice the empty chair across from her. At first, she didn't panic. 15 minutes wasn't unforgivable. She took a sip of water, glanced at the menu, and tried to look occupied. But the silence from her phone felt louder with each passing second. No apology, no explanation, just nothing. She checked the message thread again, rereading his last text from earlier that day. "Can't wait to finally meet you." The words now felt hollow. Around her, conversations flowed easily. Laughter rose and fell. Plates were served with confidence. She felt herself shrinking, becoming more aware of her solitude. This restaurant did not hide loneliness, it highlighted it, and she was sitting directly under its spotlight. She crossed her legs slowly, lifted her chin, and practiced the art of pretending. Pretending she wasn't waiting, pretending she belonged there alone, pretending this didn't matter. But inside, doubt began to whisper. What if he changed his mind? What if this was a mistake? She had dressed carefully, chosen her words wisely, and allowed herself to believe in possibility. That belief now felt fragile. She noticed a couple glance briefly in her direction before looking away. Not cruelly, just knowingly. She wondered how many people in this room had been here before, waiting for someone who never arrived. The empty chair wasn't just empty anymore. It felt loud, accusing, a constant reminder that she was alone in a place designed for pairs. She tried to distract herself by scanning the menu again, though she had already memorized it. Her fingers traced the edge of the table absent-mindedly. The waiter passed by once, then twice, his polite smile growing more uncertain each time. She nodded politely, signaling she was still waiting, but even she wasn't sure how much longer she could say that with confidence. 2 tables away, a man sat alone, but unlike her, he looked perfectly at ease. He wore a dark suit, tailored effortlessly, his posture relaxed but alert. He didn't scroll through his phone, he didn't scan the door, he sat like someone who never waited for anyone. His presence was quiet but commanding. People didn't stare at him openly, yet they seemed aware of him. The staff treated him differently, more carefully, more respectfully. She noticed him only because he stood out by not trying to, and without realizing it, he noticed her too. When his gaze landed on her, it wasn't casual curiosity. It was deliberate, observant. He didn't stare, but he didn't look away immediately either. He noticed the way she checked her phone again, the way her shoulders stiffened slightly. He saw recognition in her expression, the quiet realization that something was wrong. He had seen this before. Too many times, and something about her stillness held his attention longer than he expected. She was too busy managing disappointment to notice his attention. Her world had narrowed to the table, the chair, and the unanswered messages on her screen. She typed a short text, careful not to sound needy, then deleted it. Pride fought with hope. She set the phone face down, deciding not to check again for a few minutes. If he was coming, he would show up. If not, she wasn't ready to finish that thought. He didn't know her name, he didn't know her story, but he knew abandonment when he saw it. The posture, the controlled breathing, the attempt at dignity while something quietly collapsed inside. His jaw tightened slightly. Not in anger, but in recognition. This wasn't drama, this wasn't attention-seeking. This was someone being forgotten in public, and for reasons he didn't yet understand, that bothered him more than it should have. 30 minutes passed. That was the point of no return. No excuse could fix this now. She knew it. The waiter approached gently, asking if she would like to order while she waited. She smiled politely and declined. Saying it out loud that she was still waiting felt foolish. Her stomach tightened, not from hunger, but from humiliation. Around her, the room continued as if nothing had happened. That hurt the most. She imagined standing up, walking out, pretending this had never happened, but something stopped her. Maybe it was pride, maybe it was exhaustion, or maybe she just needed a moment longer to accept what this night had become. She straightened her shoulders and stayed seated. If she was going to be abandoned, she would at least leave on her own terms. He noticed when she stopped checking her phone. He noticed when her expression shifted from hope to resolution. That moment, when someone decides not to wait anymore, was familiar to him. Dangerous things often began in moments like that. Quiet decisions, silent conclusions. He set his glass down slowly, eyes still on her, calculating without urgency. Nothing about him screamed danger, no raised voice, no aggressive movement, yet the room subtly responded to him. A waiter adjusted his path, a nearby conversation lowered in volume. Power, when refined, did not demand attention, it received it, and now that power was focused on her. A strange sensation passed through her, a tightening of the air, a subtle awareness she couldn't explain. She lifted her eyes briefly, scanning the room. Her gaze brushed past him without stopping. Still, the feeling remained, as if something had changed, as if she was no longer as invisible as she felt moments before. What she didn't know yet was that this night had already crossed a line. What began as a disappointing blind date was becoming something else entirely, the kind of encounter that altered direction, the kind that stayed with you long after the restaurant lights dimmed. And the man at the next table, the one who couldn't look away, had already decided this story wasn't ending with her walking out alone. Acceptance did not arrive suddenly. It came in layers. First, she stopped checking the door. Then she stopped checking her phone. Finally, she allowed herself to breathe normally again. The tension in her shoulders softened, replaced by a dull heaviness in her chest. This was it. No dramatic explanation, no last-minute apology, just silence. She felt foolish for expecting more, but she reminded herself that hope was not a crime. Still, the sting of being left behind in such a public place cut deeply. She gathered her composure carefully. If she was going to leave, she would do so with dignity. She would not rush, she would not look embarrassed. She had done nothing wrong. Her fingers closed around the strap of her bag slowly, deliberately. This was the moment. Once she stood up, the night would officially be over. She rehearsed the walk in her mind, steady steps, neutral expression, no hesitation. She would pass tables without looking at anyone. She would walk through the door as if this had always been the plan. The weight of the bag felt heavier than it should have, not because of what was inside, but because of what this moment represented. Another reminder that people could disappear without explanation. She pushed her chair back slightly, preparing to stand. The waiter returned, his voice gentle but uncertain. "Will you be ordering tonight?" he asked. The question landed harder than expected. It made everything real. It forced her to acknowledge out loud that she had been waiting for nothing. She hesitated, then shook her head politely. "No, thank you," she said softly. Her voice did not break, but it came close. The waiter nodded, understanding more than he said, and stepped away. She swallowed, steadying herself. It was time to leave. The moment she shifted her chair, he knew. He had been watching closely, not intrusively, but attentively. He recognized the signs, the final decision, the quiet resolution that comes after disappointment had fully settled. He set his back slightly, eyes still on her, narrowing, not in suspicion, but in thought. Something about the way she carried herself at that moment, hurt but composed, pulled at something buried deep inside him. He didn't like unfinished stories, and this one felt unfinished. For a brief moment, he told himself to stay out of it. This was not his problem. People disappoint each other every day. The world did not pause for broken expectations. He had learned that lesson early. Intervening often created complications, and he hated unnecessary complications. But still, his gaze returned to her. Still, his attention lingered. He felt a familiar irritation, not at her, but at the situation. Someone had wasted her time, publicly, carelessly. That disrespect sat badly with him. As she rose from her seat, she felt exposed, not because people were staring, but because she felt seen. Standing alone in a restaurant like this made her painfully aware of her surroundings. She kept her chin lifted, her movements controlled. She reached for her chair, sliding it back into place neatly. If this was her exit, it would be graceful. She would not let disappointment turn into embarrassment. He didn't stand. He didn't raise his voice. He simply lifted one hand slightly, palm down, and made a subtle motion. The effect was immediate. A waiter nearby paused. Another shifted direction. The movement was so small it could have been missed, but it wasn't. This was how he operated. Quiet signals, controlled reactions. He watched her closely as he made the decision to act. Just as she took her first step away from the table, a waiter approached, not with urgency, but with purpose. "Miss," he said politely, "please, one moment." She stopped, confused. Her first thought was that there had been a mistake. She turned back slightly, her heart tightening again. Had she done something wrong? The waiter gestured toward another table, not hers. She followed his glance, puzzled. When she looked toward the table, her gaze met his, directly, fully. There was no warmth in his expression, but there was something else. Focus, awareness. He didn't smile. He didn't look away. He simply held her gaze calmly, as if this moment had always been intended. She felt her breath catch, just slightly. Something about him made it difficult to look away. Not fear, not attraction. Recognition, as if she had just stepped into someone else's plan. "You don't have to leave yet," he said. His voice was low, controlled, carrying just far enough to reach her. He didn't shout across the room. He didn't invite attention, yet the words seemed to land heavily in the air between them. She hesitated, unsure how to respond. She hadn't expected anyone to notice her at all, let alone stop her. She began, then stopped. She didn't know what to say. Her first instinct was suspicion. Why would a stranger care? Why intervene now? She studied his face briefly, looking for signs of mockery or interest that felt wrong. She found neither. His expression was unreadable, calm, almost distant, yet his attention was unmistakably on her. She felt her breath caught between gratitude and caution. This night had already surprised her enough. Without her fully realizing it, the energy in the room shifted. Conversations softened, movement slowed, not dramatically, but noticeably. It was as if the restaurant itself was holding its breath. She felt suddenly aware that this man was not ordinary, not because of what he said, but because of how the room responded to him. He didn't offer his name. He didn't explain himself. He simply gestured toward the empty seat across from him. "Sit," he said, not as a command, but not as a request either. The word carried weight. Choice still belonged to her, but the invitation was clear. She paused for one last moment, listening to her instincts. Leave now, and this night would end in disappointment. Stay and step into the unknown. She took a breath, squared her shoulders, and walked toward his table. Whatever this was, she would face it directly. She had already been abandoned once tonight. She refused to be afraid of what came next.
As she took the seat across from him, she understood one thing clearly. This night was no longer about a blind date that never happened. It had become something else entirely, something unexpected, something powerful. And the man sitting across from her, the one who couldn't look away, was the beginning of a story she never imagined herself stepping into. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence was not awkward, but it was dense, like something solid resting between them. She folded her hands in her lap, unsure where to place her eyes. He studied her quietly, not intrusively, but thoroughly. This was not the kind of silence that demanded filling. It was the kind that waited. She realized he was giving her space, not by politeness, but out of control. He was comfortable letting moments stretch. That alone told her more about him than words could. Her thoughts raced even as her expression remained calm. Why her? Why now? She searched for a reason that made sense, but nothing fit neatly. She hadn't caused a scene, she hadn't asked for help, yet here she was, sitting across from a man who clearly did not act without reason. She felt exposed, as if her disappointment had been visible long before she accepted it herself. Did he cancel? The question was direct, not invasive. She hesitated, but nodded. He didn't show up, she said. Saying it out loud made it feel final. He gave a small nod, as if confirming something he already knew. There was no pity in his expression, no surprise, just acknowledgement. That, oddly, made her feel lighter. She expected follow-up questions. What happened? How long had she waited? But he asked none of that. He didn't need a full explanation to understand disrespect. His silence told her he had already judged the situation, and not in her favor. She appreciated that more than she expected. Sometimes understanding didn't need words. A waiter approached their table, posture straighter than before. "May I bring you something?" he asked her, this time without uncertainty. She glanced briefly at the man across from her. He gave a slight nod, not permission, but reassurance. She ordered a drink she hadn't planned on having. It felt symbolic, like choosing to stay present rather than retreat. As she spoke, as she ordered, as she adjusted her seat, he watched. Not in a way that felt possessive, but intentional. He noticed how she carried herself despite disappointment, how she didn't complain, how she didn't seek sympathy. These details mattered to him. They spoke of resilience, of pride, of someone who endured without making noise. His gaze wasn't uncomfortable, but it was intense. She felt seen in a way that made her aware of herself. Not judged, measured. She straightened slightly, not to impress, but instinctively. Something about him demanded presence, not perfection, presence. "You waited long enough," he said quietly. The words carried no accusation, just truth. She nodded slowly. It felt like permission to let go of the night she had been clinging to stop hoping for something that wasn't coming. He had named the moment for what it was. There was an offer in his tone, though he hadn't said it outright, not of romance, not of rescue, but of acknowledgement, of not letting the night end in humiliation. She realized then, this wasn't kindness in the traditional sense, it was something else, something deliberate. As she looked at him more closely, she noticed something important. His eyes didn't burn with anger or curiosity, they burned with intent. He wasn't reacting, he was deciding. Whatever brought him to act tonight went deeper than impulse. This was someone who understood balance, control, and consequence, and somehow she had stepped into his awareness at exactly the right moment. He didn't rush the conversation. He didn't try to impress her. That restraint carried weight. Power didn't need to prove itself. It simply existed. She felt it in the way he sat, in the way he spoke, in the way the room continued to bend subtly around him. "I didn't expect tonight to end this way," she said softly. It wasn't a complaint, just a truth. He listened without interruption. When she finished, he nodded once. No commentary, no judgment, just acceptance. He admired composure, always had. People revealed who they were when things didn't go their way. She had handled disappointment with quiet strength. That mattered to him, more than charm, more than beauty. Strength that didn't announce itself was rare. Time seemed to stretch. The noise of the restaurant faded slightly into the background. She felt anchored to the moment, no longer rushing to escape it. Whatever this encounter was becoming, it demanded patience, and she found, surprisingly, that she was willing to give it. For the first time that night, the emptiness eased. She wasn't rescued, she wasn't saved, but she was no longer alone in her disappointment, and that made all the difference. Whatever happened next, this night had already changed the night. He didn't ask where she was from, he didn't ask what she did for a living. Instead, he watched how she held her glass, how she listened, how she paused before speaking. Those details told him more than direct questions ever could. He learned she chose her words carefully, that she wasn't reckless with emotion, that she had learned to protect herself quietly. These were things he respected deeply. Information didn't always come from answers, sometimes it came from silence. It became impossible not to notice. The waiters didn't interrupt him, they didn't rush him, they waited for subtle cues. Plates arrived without being asked for, the bill never appeared. She had been in expensive places before, but this was different. This wasn't wealth alone, this was authority, the kind that didn't need to announce itself. She felt a small knot of curiosity form in her chest. She studied him discreetly now, just as he had studied her earlier. His suit was understated but perfect. No flashy jewelry, no visible excess. Everything about him suggested discipline, control. She wondered what kind of life shaped someone like this. What experiences made a man sit so calmly while the world adjusted around him? The question surprised her. "Why here?"
Asked, voice steady. She thought for a moment. "He picked it," she admitted. "Said it would be nice." The words tasted bitter now. He nodded slowly. That single nod carried judgment, but not toward her, toward the man who hadn't shown up. He didn't speak it aloud, but she felt it clearly. This place deserved respect. So did she. Disrespect was language he understood fluently. He had built his world around correcting it. Not loudly, not publicly, but permanently. Someone who abandoned a woman like this, in a place like this, had shown poor character, weakness, carelessness. He made a quiet mental note, not of revenge, but of assessment. Some people revealed themselves without knowing it. The realization surprised her. Sitting across from a stranger should have made her uneasy. Instead, she felt grounded, protected even. Not because he promised anything, but because he was present, fully present. His attention didn't wander, his phone remained untouched. When he listened completely. That alone created safety. "Time is the only thing you don't get back," he said casually. The statement felt heavier than it sounded. She nodded. Tonight had proven that painfully. "Anyone who wastes it," he continued, "is careless with more than minutes." She understood immediately. He wasn't talking about schedules, he was talking about respect. There was something rare in the way he observed her. He noticed without prying. He understood without demanding explanation. She didn't feel interrogated, she felt acknowledged. That was new and unexpectedly comforting. The restaurant still buzzed, but it felt distant now, as if they occupied a separate space within it. Conversations blurred, laughter softened. She forgot, briefly, why she had wanted to leave. The night had changed shape. No dramatic stories, no exaggerated confidence, no charm offensive. He didn't need her approval, that was clear. And somehow, that made his presence stronger, authentic, unmovable. She found herself relaxing without meaning to. The question slipped out before she could reconsider. "Why did you stop me?" she asked quietly. He held her gaze for a moment, considering how much truth to offer.
"Because I don't like unfinished things," he said finally. The answer was simple, but layered. She sensed it. She could have asked more. She chose not to. Something told her that pressing would break the balance. Some things were meant to be understood, not explained. She accepted the answer as it was. Not control over people, but over situations, over outcomes, over himself. He didn't react emotionally. He responded strategically. Even now, everything about him felt intentional. That realization made her more aware of her own words, not out of fear, but respect. Not pity, not curiosity, attention. The kind given sparingly, the kind that meant something. He had seen enough. Her composure, her restraint, her quiet strength. She wasn't fragile, she was steady, and that mattered. Nothing about this moment felt accidental anymore. She hadn't been saved by coincidence, she had been noticed by decision, and that distinction changed everything. Whatever followed would not be random, it would be deliberate. The realizations settled slowly. He hadn't spoken to her out of impulse, he had chosen to. That carried weight. Being chosen wasn't about romance or rescue, it was about recognition. And recognition from someone like him felt different. He didn't scatter his attention, he directed it, carefully, purposefully. She felt both honored and cautious at the same time. The question was quiet, almost casual. "What were you going to do after you left?" he asked. She thought for a moment. "Go home, pretend this didn't happen." There was no self-pity in her tone, just realism. He nodded slowly, absorbing the answer. That kind of honesty mattered to him. "Things always matter," he said calmly. "People just decide whether to face them." The words weren't directed at her alone. They felt like a principle he lived by. She felt them sink into her chest. Tonight had mattered. Even the disappointment had mattered. A small smile touched her lips as she asked, "Are you always this straightforward?" He considered the question. "Only when I mean something," he replied. The answer was simple, final. She believed him immediately. She didn't exaggerate, didn't perform, didn't adjust herself to fit what she thought he wanted. That stood out. Many people did too much when faced with authority. She did less, and that told him she knew her own value, even if tonight had shaken it. Dishes were cleared quietly, drinks were refreshed without interruption. The staff seemed to orbit him rather than approach directly. She noticed now how nothing disrupted his rhythm. This wasn't privilege alone, this was reputation, and it made her more curious than afraid. There was a sense of restraint in him, as if he constantly filtered what the world was allowed to see. He spoke clearly, but selectively. She wondered what stories sat behind his calm expression, what kind of life taught someone to be this measured. He noticed when she leaned back, when she relaxed, when she grew thoughtful. These reactions told him she wasn't overwhelmed, she was adapting. That impressed him. Adaptability was survival. He respected survivors. Some people don't need much time to show who they are. She knew exactly who he meant. She nodded. The man who hadn't shown up revealed himself without speaking a word. That truth hurt, but it also clarified things. The sharp edge of humiliation dulled. The night no longer felt like a loss. It felt like a redirection. She hadn't gained what she expected, but she had gained something else. Perspective, presence, a sense that being left behind didn't define her. "I don't feel sorry for you," he said evenly. The words might have sounded harsh from someone else, but from him, they felt grounding. "You handled it well." That acknowledgement meant more than pity ever could. Everything about him suggested one thing above all. Respect mattered. It guided his decisions, it shaped his reactions, it determined who stayed in his world and who didn't. She felt relieved knowing she hadn't lost his respect by being disappointed. Not too close, not distant, balanced. He understood space, not just physical, but emotional. He didn't crowd her, didn't push. He let moments breathe. That control made her trust him more, not less. This wasn't an invitation to forget the night. It was an invitation to reclaim it, to leave with dignity intact, to transform an ending into something solid. That mattered to her more than comfort. She didn't know where this would lead. She didn't assume anything, but she felt it clearly now. This night would stay with her, not because she was abandoned, but because she wasn't invisible afterward, and that changed how she would remember everything.
The question was simple, almost ordinary. "Are you hungry?" he asked. It wasn't about food alone. It was about care without obligation. She paused, then nodded. "A little," she admitted. He gave a small gesture toward the waiter. No announcement, no discussion, just action. It felt natural, unforced, and somehow grounding. When the food arrived, it wasn't rushed. They ate slowly, comfortably. The act of eating did something subtle. It reset her nervous system. It reminded her that life continued beyond disappointment, that moments could still be enjoyed even when plans fell apart. He watched her relax further, noting how her shoulders lowered, how her expression softened. They didn't talk constantly. There were pauses, comfortable ones. She realized she didn't feel pressure to perform or entertain. That was rare. With him, silence felt allowed, even respected. "Everything works better when it's balanced," he said at one point. The comment felt broader than the conversation. She sensed it reflected how he lived. Control balanced with restraint. Power balanced with patience. She listened carefully, knowing he didn't speak without purpose. Not him yet, but the moment. She stopped anticipating the end, stopped preparing her exit. She allowed herself to exist in the present without fear of being dismissed. That alone felt like a small victory. He saw the shift, the way her laugh came easier, the way she leaned forward slightly now. The guardedness hadn't disappeared, but it had softened. That told him she was comfortable enough to be herself. He respected that deeply. That surprised her. In another situation, that might have felt disappointing. Here, it felt deliberate. He didn't collect people. He didn't chase moments. He let things unfold at the right pace. That restraint made his interest feel heavier, not lighter. Calm, measured, unrushed. She suspected this was his natural rhythm. The world adjusted to him, not the other way around. That realization made her see the night differently. She hadn't been saved by chance. She had been noticed by someone who rarely noticed anyone. Calm, measured, unrushed. She suspected this was his natural rhythm. The world adjusted to him, not the other way around. That realization made her see the night differently. She hadn't been saved by chance. She had been noticed by someone who rarely noticed anyone. Earlier, she had wondered if she had done something wrong, if she wasn't enough. Now those thoughts felt distant. His calm perspective reframed the night. Not every rejection was personal. Some were simply revelations. He noticed how she didn't react immediately, how she reflected before responding. That told him she didn't consume words casually. She considered them. That mattered to him. Words were tools, dangerous when misused. What once felt intimidating now felt neutral. The restaurant had lost its edge. She belonged here not because of status, but because she carried herself with quiet confidence again. That change came from within, not from him. He had simply allowed space for it. As she finished her meal, he decided something. Not impulsively, carefully. This wasn't about attraction alone. It was about alignment. Composure recognized composure. Strength recognized strength. He had seen enough. There was a subtle change in his posture, a new level of focus. She noticed it immediately. The air felt heavier, not threatening, but significant, like the moment before a door opens. Whatever came next would not be casual. She sensed that clearly. This wasn't the end of an interaction. It was the beginning of a direction.
and she found that she wasn't afraid of where it might lead. The question wasn't rushed. "Are you ready to go?" he asked calmly. "Not now, not with me, just ready." She considered the feeling inside her. She wasn't eager to escape anymore. She wasn't desperate to stay either. She felt steady. "Yes," she said after a moment, and she meant it. When he stood, the movement wasn't unhurried but decisive. The room adjusted instantly. Chairs shifted, conversations softened. She noticed how no one blocked his path. Authority moved ahead of him like air clearing space. She rose beside him, instinctively matching his pace. As they walked toward the exit, he didn't place a hand on her back or arm. He didn't need to. His presence guided direction naturally. She stayed close without being pulled. That subtle respect made her feel safer than physical contact ever could. No receipt appeared, no bill was mentioned. A nod here, a quiet "good evening" there. Everything had already been handled. She noticed and understood this was normal for him, not luxury, routine. The night air hit her gently, clearing the last weight of the restaurant from her chest. The city hummed softly around them. Cars passed, lights reflected on the pavement. The world felt open again, not closed in. He didn't rush her forward. He stopped just outside the door, giving her space to adjust. That pause mattered. It told her this wasn't about control, it was about awareness. Not blindly, but intuitively. He moved when it made sense, he stopped when it mattered. That rhythm made her comfortable following without feeling led. "What's your name?" he asked. The simplicity of the question surprised her. After all this felt oddly intimate. She told him. He repeated it once quietly, as if testing how it sounded. That repetition felt intentional. Names mattered to him. He gave him his first name. Nothing more, no titles, no explanations, just enough. She sensed that was all she would get for now, and that pushing for more would be a mistake. Some people revealed themselves in layers for a reason. Standing there beside him, she understood something clearly. She didn't know where this would lead, she didn't know who he truly was, but she knew this much. She was no longer alone in the way she had been earlier that night. Someone had seen her, chosen to stand beside her, and that changed everything. He scanned the surroundings briefly, not with paranoia, but with habit. His awareness extended outward, measuring space, movement, exits. She noticed the shift. This wasn't casual alertness, this was instinct. It wasn't fear that stirred in her, it was realization. His calm didn't come from innocence, it came from experience, from a life that required constant awareness. She didn't ask questions, she absorbed what she saw. "Notion should go home feeling dismissed," he said quietly. The words landed deeply. He wasn't correcting the date, he was correcting the outcome. That distinction mattered. She felt thankful, but not indebted. He hadn't made her feel like she owed him anything. That mattered. True power didn't demand repayment, it acted because it chose to. As he stood together under the streetlights, the city no longer felt indifferent. It felt watchful, alive, like something had shifted in her perception. The night wasn't over, it was evolving. The question was practical, not personal. "How were you getting home?" he asked. She told him honestly, public transport, a long wait, a quiet ride with too much time to think. He listened without reacting. Practical details mattered to him. How people moved through the world said a lot about their lives. He didn't respond immediately. His eyes shifted briefly down the street, then back to her. The pause wasn't hesitation, it was calculation. She sensed that whatever he decided next would not be impulsive. "I can have someone take you," he said calmly. Not "I will," not "you should," just an option presented neutrally. She appreciated that. He wasn't assuming authority over her choices, he was offering stability. She hesitated, not from fear, but from pride. She had learned to rely on herself, but tonight had drained her more than she realized. She met his eyes, searching for expectation. There was none, just patience. "Okay," she said finally. The word didn't feel heavy, it felt sensible. She wasn't surrendering control, she was choosing rest. That distinction mattered. She hadn't seen him signal anyone, yet a dark car rolled to the curb smoothly, as if it had been waiting all along. The timing was precise, intentional. She understood then that nothing around him happened by accident. He didn't usher her in with a hand on her back. He opened the door and waited. The gesture was respectful, clear. She entered the car on her own terms. He leaned in briefly, speaking to the driver in a low voice. She couldn't hear the words, only the tone. Controlled. Final. Whatever he said didn't need repetition. That surprised her. She had assumed, without realizing, that he might. Instead, he stepped back, closing the door gently. The boundary was intentional. This wasn't about proximity, it was about care. That surprised her. She had assumed, without realizing, that he might. Instead, he stepped back, closing the door gently. The boundary was intentional. This wasn't about proximity, it was about care. "Get home safe," he said. The words were simple, but from him, they carried weight. They sounded less like hope and more like expectation. As the car pulled away, she felt something settle inside her. The night no longer felt unfinished. It had shape now, meaning, even without knowing what would come next. Streetlights blurred past the window. The rhythm of the ride was steady. She replayed the night, not obsessively, but thoughtfully. The disappointment no longer defined it. The interruption did. Not because they promise something, but because they restore something. Dignity.
Balance. Perspective. Tonight had done that, and she knew she would remember it clearly. She didn't know how she knew. There was no promise, no exchanged numbers, no plan, but the certainty sat quietly in her chest. This was not an ending, it was a pause. The car moved steadily through the city, but her thoughts were calm instead of restless. Usually, rides home after disappointment were loud with self-questioning. Tonight was quiet, not empty quiet. She leaned back slightly, watching reflections slide across the window. What stayed with her wasn't what went wrong, but what had unexpectedly gone right. She didn't dissect every sentence. She didn't romanticize his presence. She simply remembered how grounded everything felt. His calm, his restraint, the way he never rushed the moment. Those details stayed with her because they felt real, not dramatic. That realization surprised her most. She had walked out of the restaurant without fear, without embarrassment, without the usual sense of being dismissed. That feeling mattered. It lingered. The silence in the car wasn't awkward. It was professional, intentional. The route felt planned, efficient. She understood now that even this quiet ride was part of a larger structure. Things around him worked smoothly because they were designed to. Not rescued, not controlled, influenced. She imagined how many moments he had redirected without people realizing it, how many outcomes he had adjusted with small decisions. The thought was sobering and oddly reassuring. When the car stopped, she didn't feel exhausted the way she normally did after emotional nights. She felt settled, clear. She stepped out, thanked the driver, and watched the car disappear into the street without drama. The familiar quiet of her space greeted her, but it didn't feel heavy. She placed her bag down, slipped off her shoes, and moved slowly. The loneliness that had followed her earlier was gone, replaced by something steadier. She didn't immediately distract herself. She didn't turn on music or scroll her phone. She allowed the night to exist in her mind without pushing it away. That felt important. For the first time, she didn't feel angry, just aware. He had made his choice, and she finally saw it clearly. Some people exit your life before they ever fully enter it. Normally, she would have called a friend, explained everything, looked for validation. Tonight, she didn't need to. The experience had already resolved itself inside her. The night hadn't taken something from her, it had returned something: self-respect, perspective, balance.
She went to bed knowing she hadn't been diminished by being left behind. Across the city, he stood briefly outside the restaurant after she left. He didn't linger, he didn't dramatize the moment, but he noted it. Some encounters were worth remembering. He admired restraint more than emotion. She had carried herself well from beginning to end. That stayed with him. Not many people did. He didn't decide immediately. He never did. Decisions mattered too much to rush. But he acknowledged the possibility, and that was significant. Neither of them turned the night into something it wasn't. It remained grounded, real. That was why it mattered. Some stories didn't need exaggeration to leave a mark. Morning arrived without urgency. The light crept in through the curtains softly, not demanding attention. She woke with a strange clarity, the kind that usually came after long decisions had been made quietly overnight. There was no heaviness in her chest, no replaying of mistakes, just awareness. She lay still for a moment, letting the feeling settle, recognizing it for what it was, peace. As she moved through her morning routine, the memory of the night returned, not sharply, not emotionally, but steadily. It didn't feel like something that happened to her. It felt like something she had passed through and come out stronger on the other side. The embarrassment she had feared never arrived. In its place was a calm certainty that she had handled herself well. She caught herself smiling faintly, not because of romance, not because of fantasy, but because the night had restored something she hadn't realized she was missing. Confidence, perhaps, or trust in her own instincts. She had stayed, she had spoken honestly, she had walked away with dignity intact. Later that day, as she moved through familiar streets, the city felt subtly different, not changed, but clearer. She noticed things she usually rushed past, the sound of traffic, the rhythm of people moving with purpose. It reminded her that life continued steadily regardless of individual disappointments. Across the city, he moved through his own routine with the same control he applied to everything. Meetings were brief, conversations efficient, decisions made without emotion, but not without thought. Yet, in the quiet moments between responsibilities, her composure returned to his mind, not insistently, just present. He didn't dwell on it, he never did, but he acknowledged it. Some people left impressions not because they demanded attention, but because they didn't. She was one of those. He respected restraint, always had, and she had shown it when it mattered. That placed her apart from most people he encountered. Days passed without contact, without messages, without coincidence, and still the memory remained balanced, untouched by regret or expectation. That balance mattered to both of them more than immediate action ever could. She didn't check her phone hoping for something that hadn't been promised. She didn't wait. She lived. And that is precisely why the night held its weight. It hadn't created dependence. It had restored autonomy. When she thought of him, it wasn't with longing, it was with respect, the kind that acknowledged timing, boundaries, and choice. Whatever that night had been, it had been enough. And somewhere between routine and reflection, a quiet understanding settled into place for both of them. Some encounters weren't meant to be pursued immediately. They were meant to exist as markers, proof that even in moments of abandonment, direction could change. The night didn't promise a future. It offered something rarer. It reminded her she was never invisible, and it reminded him that restraint still recognized strength. Weeks passed, yet the memory remained vivid in her mind, not as a memory to obsess over, but as a quiet lesson in awareness. She realized that moments like that didn't fade, they settled. They became reference points. She moved through her days more carefully, more observantly, noticing subtleties she would have overlooked before. The night had sharpened her perception, not dulled it. She caught herself smiling at small moments now, a stranger's courtesy, the rhythm of a street, the precision of someone else's actions. Everything that once seemed ordinary now carried a weight of meaning. She understood that balance existed even in chaos, and that she had glimpsed it once. Meanwhile, across the city, he moved through his own routine with the same control he applied to everything. Meetings were brief, conversations efficient, decisions made without emotion, but not without thought. Yet, in the quiet moments between responsibilities, her composure returned to his mind, not insistently, just present. He didn't dwell on it, he never did, but he acknowledged it. Some people left impressions not because they demanded attention, but because they didn't. She was one of those. He respected restraint, always had, and she had shown it when it mattered. That placed her apart from most people he encountered. Days passed without contact, without messages, without coincidence, and still the memory remained balanced, untouched by regret or expectation. That balance mattered to both of them more than immediate action ever could. She didn't check her phone hoping for something that hadn't been promised. She didn't wait. She lived. And that is precisely why the night held its weight. It hadn't created dependence, it had restored autonomy. When she thought of him, it wasn't with longing, it was with respect, the kind that acknowledged timing, boundaries, and choice. Whatever that night had been, it had been enough. And somewhere between routine and reflection, a quiet understanding settled into place for both of them. Some encounters weren't meant to be pursued immediately, they were meant to exist as markers, proof that even in moments of abandonment, direction could change. The night didn't promise a future, it offered something rarer. It reminded her she was never invisible, and it reminded him that restraint still recognized strength. Weeks passed, yet the memory remained vivid in her mind, not as a memory to obsess over, but as a quiet lesson in awareness. She realized that moments like that didn't fade, they settled. They became reference points. She moved through her days more carefully, more observantly, noticing subtleties she would have overlooked before. The night had sharpened her perception, not dulled it. She caught herself smiling at small moments now, a stranger's courtesy, the rhythm of a street, the precision of someone else's actions. Everything that once seemed ordinary now carried a weight of meaning. She understood that balance existed even in chaos, and that she had glimpsed it once. Meanwhile, across the city, he moved through his own routine with the same control he applied to everything. Meetings were brief, conversations efficient, decisions made without emotion, but not without thought. Yet, in the quiet moments between responsibilities, her composure returned to his mind, not insistently, just present. He didn't dwell on it, he never did, but he acknowledged it. Some people left impressions not because they demanded attention, but because they didn't. She had been one of those. He respected restraint, always had, and she had shown it when it mattered. That placed her apart from most people he encountered. Days passed without contact, without messages, without coincidence, and still the memory remained balanced, untouched by regret or expectation. That balance mattered to both of them more than immediate action ever could. She didn't check her phone hoping for something that hadn't been promised. She didn't wait. She lived, and that was precisely why the night held its weight. It hadn't created dependence, it had restored autonomy. When she thought of him, it wasn't with longing, it was with respect, the kind that acknowledged timing, boundaries, and choice. Whatever that night had been, it had been enough. And somewhere between routine and reflection, a quiet understanding settled into place for both of them. Some encounters weren't meant to be pursued immediately, they were meant to exist as markers, proof that even in moments of abandonment, direction could change. The night didn't promise a future, it offered something rarer. It reminded her she was never invisible, and it reminded him that restraint still recognized strength. Weeks passed, yet the night remained vivid in her mind, not as a memory to obsess over, but as a quiet lesson in awareness. She realized that moments like that didn't fade, they settled. They became reference points. She moved through her days more carefully, more observantly, noticing subtleties she would have overlooked before. The night had sharpened her perception, not dulled it. She caught herself smiling at small moments now, a stranger's courtesy, the rhythm of a street, the precision of someone else's actions. Everything that once seemed ordinary now carried a weight of meaning. She understood that balance existed even in chaos, and that she had glimpsed it once. Meanwhile, across the city, he observed life in the same measured way. Business, decisions, movements, they all followed a rhythm he maintained effortlessly. Yet the memory of her composure and quiet strength lingered, not as attachment, but as acknowledgement. Some people simply leave impressions that matter. She didn't dwell on why he acted when he did. She only appreciated the effect. It had changed how she viewed herself, her resilience, her ability to handle disappointment, and her capacity to stay composed under scrutiny. That insight was more valuable than any romance could have been. As days turned to weeks, she found herself revisiting the night in thought, not with longing, but with gratitude. The restaurant, the empty date, the silence, all of it had led her to see something crucial. Dignity is preserved not when the world acts kindly, but when you maintain yourself despite it. He too recalled the night with clarity, not with obsession, not with expectation, but with recognition. She had handled herself well. That mattered more than charm, beauty, or circumstance. Strength like that rarely went unnoticed. Life continued, naturally, without forced encounters, yet the impact remained. She moved with more assurance. He observed more keenly. They had changed the trajectory of each other's awareness, subtly, without contact, without explanation. And in that subtlety lay power, not dominance, not control, but influence. One person's composure could alter the perception of another. One quiet night could recalibrate the way two people approached the world. Finally, she understood that she didn't need validation. She had seen her own strength reflected in another's recognition. That was enough. She didn't need explanations. She didn't need apologies. She only needed acknowledgement, and she had received it. He understood that some people enter your life briefly, but leave lasting impressions. He didn't pursue. He didn't force outcomes. He observed, adjusted, and allowed the world to continue in motion. Yet he carried the memory of her presence like a note he kept carefully in mind. And so the night ended, not with resolution or drama, but with quiet finality. She had been abandoned once, yet noticed. He had acted once, yet left no claim. The story remained balanced, complete in its own way, subtle but significant. She slept that night with clarity. The weight of disappointment lifted. The lesson endured. Dignity isn't granted, it's preserved. Respect isn't demanded, it's earned, often silently. And some encounters change the way you walk through the world forever. He returned to his routines undisturbed, yet with awareness renewed. Some nights leave traces not because of action, but because of perception. That night had been one of those. And in the quiet, she felt the world slightly more aligned than before. She had been noticed, she had been acknowledged, she had endured, and that alone was powerful. The city continued moving around them both, indifferent yet attentive in subtle ways. Life went on, but neither would forget the precision of that night. It had shifted something intangible, something neither could measure, but both could feel. No promises had been made, no expectations left, only awareness, restraint, and the quiet acknowledgement of strength. Some stories didn't need endings, they needed presence, and that night had provided exactly that.
Time revealed what emotion could not. The night had never been about rescue, romance, or power. It was about recognition. What stayed with her was not his presence, but her own response. She had not broken under embarrassment. She had not searched for approval. She had remained steady. That understanding settled into her quietly and changed the way she carried herself. She stopped questioning her worth in silence. She stopped replaying old disappointments. The confidence that grew in her was not loud or dramatic. It was calm,
grounded and consistent. It showed in how she spoke, how she listened, and how she chose when to remain silent. The night had not given her a man, it had given her clarity. He understood how to close moments without regret. Not every encounter needed continuation. Some existed only to confirm instinct and judgment. He accepted that the night had served its purpose. There was no reason to interfere further. From that point on, she carried the lesson into everything new. She stopped entering spaces hoping to be accepted and started arriving with quiet certainty. When conversations felt empty, she no longer tried to fill them. When people revealed uncertainty, she noticed without bitterness. The night had taught her that presence mattered more than performance. She learned that silence could be as powerful as words, and that walking away did not always mean loss. It often meant respect for herself. Each new beginning felt lighter because she was no longer waiting to be chosen. She had already chosen herself. As time passed, the details of that night slowly softened. The sounds, the lighting, the exact expressions faded, but the impact remained. It lived in the way she held her head higher, in the patience he exercised more deliberately, and in how both of them recognized strength when it appeared quietly. The memory no longer demanded attention, yet it never disappeared. It settled into the place where meaningful moments belong, not loud, not dramatic, but permanent. And long after the night stopped being recalled clearly, its influence continued shaping choices neither of them would ever regret.